So many things that I could talk about with the 50s. I chose for this video to focus on the Cold War. Now, you might be scratching your head going, what exactly is the Cold War? Well, the Cold War refers to the tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union after World War II. You might know the Soviet Union better as Russia. Now, it's called a Cold War because although there was tension, there was no actual war fighting. So nobody was shooting at anybody, there were no tanks, that kind of thing. That's why it's called cold. Now, why were there so many tensions? Well, the tensions had been building up for quite some time. The only reason the United States and Russia were on the same side during World War II is because they had a common enemy. They both needed to fight Germany and Italy. But immediately after the war, there was questions, particularly about Eastern Europe. As the war had been ending, it was Russia that liberated Eastern Europe and pushed Germany out of Eastern Europe. And Russia was very excited and very wanting to turn Eastern Europe communist. And that is basically exactly what they did. The Prime Minister in Great Britain said it was as though an iron curtain fell down Europe, and the eastern half was now communist or socialist with Russia, and the eastern half not. The United States had never really been a fan of communism, just economically, socialism as well, but they were not a huge fan of Russia / the Soviet Union's government, their leaders, because it was sort of like a dictatorship, that kind of thing. And so they did not want Russia to spread its influence, to spread its power, to spread communism. And so the two sides were very much at odds. And that's kind of as basically as I can put it for you. Now, what does that mean? Well, the United States had some policies that they went with. The first was containment, and that was you have to attempt to contain communism as best as you possibly can. You cannot let it spread. And along with that containment policy came the Truman Doctrine. President Truman was president from 1945, when President Roosevelt died, up until 1953, when he ended his second term. And he very much said, if there is any country or any people out there that are resisting being taken over by communism, we will help them. And specifically in his speech, he mentions Greece and Turkey, and specifically Greece was doing just that. They were fighting communist rebels in their country, and the United States was going to step in. Now, the other way that you can contain communism is through the Marshall Plan. The Marshall Plan was meant to send economic aid to Western Europe, so non-socialist, non-communist Europe. We send economic aid to them to help them rebuild. The point was, if people are comfortable, if they're rebuilt, if they can go to their job and live their life, they're not going to be out on the streets asking for revolution. They're not going to be out on the streets asking for communism, where the government will take over the economy and hopefully make things better. I guess that would have been the hope. If things are good, people won't be asking for that. And so we'll help them out. We'll send them economic aid. We'll help them rebuild. Now, here's the thing. It didn't go over well. The Allies had a lot of problems. Example, when they split up Germany after the war, they split up the city of Berlin. And they said, we'll split it in 4, and each one of the Allies will get to take a piece, and eventually we'll merge together. Well, you can imagine the Soviet / Russian half didn't really want to merge with the other ones, and you end up with 2 Germanys, Eastern Germany and West Germany, and the poor city of Berlin was split down the middle, half was in the Eastern Germany country and half was in the Western Germany country, and it was just a huge mess. Read in your textbook a little bit about that. And as the 50s go on, the tensions and the, I guess, posturing from both sides really ramps up, and it keeps getting worse. So keep reading about that in your textbook. A classic example of how the tensions ramp up is the Korean War. Again, similar story. After World War II, Korea was split north and south. The north part of Korea became communist because Russia kind of took over that spot, and the southern part of Korea became democratic because the United States had been in that area. And the Korean War started when communist North Korea decided to try to take over South Korea that was democratic. And the United States had said, we will help anybody fighting communism, and that meant we're going to help South Korea because they are fighting communist North Korea. And so we got involved in Korea. It's a great example of how sort of containment works, the Truman Plan works, and how you end up getting involved in lots of other places. At home, communism was a scary thing, and there were a lot of rumors and accusations that there were all kinds of communists that were in the government and that they were trying to undermine the government and take it over and work for the Soviet Union or work for Russia. And was it true? A little bit, but the rumors were not always true. And so that led in the 1950s to a gigantic, what they called Red Scare, fear of communism. And it was not helped by a man named Joseph McCarthy. He was a senator from Wisconsin, and he made it his mission to root out any communists in the government, or basically any communists anywhere. And it led to a lot of fear. He took things way too far, and eventually he kind of went down when some of his hearings were put on television and people kind of saw exactly what it was that he was doing. Okay? Now that is just the briefest of overviews of what's happening with the Cold War in the 50s. Please, please, please see chapter 26 and 27 for more, and also look at the PowerPoint. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, and